What's up, everyone? I'm here. Big weekend coming up, so I got a big guest here. You guys loved him last time he was on. The man, the myth, the legend, Nick Avery's here. Gonna help me talk about upcoming weekend and everything about it. Nick, how we doing, man?
Good, man. Good. Excited. I got the triple monitors going. Got the brackets. Been exciting week. Obviously, this is always an exciting week, especially when they come out and you get to kind of look up a little closer at what all the kids are doing from some of the other states. And as you know, I've got my eye on kids from all over, so it's a lot of it. And I've kept my eye on your rankings. It's been awesome. It's been an awesome resource for I know just really everyone in New England. I know parents like it. I know kids like it. College coaches, if they're not looking at the site, they're crazy. I mean, it's hand fed for us. So we appreciate what you do too, man.
Thank you.
Well, you wanna get into kind of, I guess, the first part, which is the bracket coming out, and your thoughts on kind of that.
Yeah, dude, it's real interesting. I feel like at a time, this seeding process, this bracket structure worked. At a time, in the 2000s to mid 2010s, it worked.
Mhm.
But I feel like we're just at a point where, we're people, we need to evolve, we need to change things, and I put out an article a while ago about like different possibilities for entries and stuff. But, I don't think we can do with this seating chart that they use anymore.
Right. Right. No, man, I couldn't agree more. And let's rewind it a little bit. I think they had a really good intent, right? I
Yeah.
think it started out and it was absolutely probably right at the time. And you look back, and even when I was wrestling, in the earlier 2000s, it made somewhat sense because you didn't have as much resources. You didn't know what kids in Vermont were doing versus kids in Rhode Island. And so thinking about seeding that would have been mayhem, I think, back then. Well, my kid's 50-0, well, my kid's 49-2. Well, it's so I think now, though, as you know, hence how you're able to, which is awesome, rank all the way down to 20 guys in New England is there's so many resources out there. And so, I just think it's like you said, it's funny you said evolved, because that was one of the notes I put down, was evolved. Like, our sport has evolved. It's time, we evolve
We
with
need
it.
to evolve with it, yeah.
Right. So what do you think good structures, I guess, or how would you see it? I saw your article just came out.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, you need to give every state their due, show respect to every state's champion and runner-up. So that's why in my article I gave all top 12 seeds, state champions and runner-ups. And then, from there, I think you need to look at the six champions, look at the six runner-ups, kind of almost seed them 1 to 6 in their own thing, and then put the runner-ups after, so it's 1 to 12. But you need to look at the head-to-heads and stuff. And then what I did after that is, we're kind of at the point where New England wrestling, and especially these kids, they're looking for colleges. Wrestling has evolved. It's kids' lives. So it's really not fair for, let's say, Massachusetts 5 to get, like the 20 seed or something, when he's really like a top 12 kid in New England and his state is just
Mhm.
deep.
Right.
So that's why in my article, I tried to, actually seed them the best I could,
Mhm.
but still trying to show some respect, not giving the Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, or whoever third place finisher always the last seed, because
Mhm.
that's not fair, and that's not always the case.
Right. 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 And I think people would be willing to also do so many different alternatives if it's not exactly to that 12 and 6 and 6. And I thought it was really cool. I thought it was interesting. And I at least from what know of the landscape, and of course you can argue, hey, this person would be 6 or 7 versus 7, but overall they're very, very accurate, or at least close to accurate. Not, you're looking at, all right, well, if we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4 right, and we're arguing over 5 and 6, we're doing something right. Versus, I think what we'll see a little bit later down the road. But I do want to emphasize again when we look at these brackets. But I do want to emphasize again, like, I get why it was the way it was for forever. It made perfect sense. And I also think with the region evolving, that's also a reason why it's kind of maybe it's time for change too, just because the regions evolve so much. And let's be honest, it's certain regions, certain areas and pockets, just like in every state and every region, are developing maybe a little bit more than others. And we want them all to develop, but some weights in certain years are deeper than others. And so let it sort out kind of just like every other sport. Every other sport, there's usually some sort of kind of similar 1 through 4 seed or something, when they bracket down. So, no, I'm at least excited that they moved it the right way, right? So,
Mhm.
I guess, do you want to get into the brackets now?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, let's get into it. I got one
All
of
right.
six loaded up right here. Stand out right away. There's some clear cut, badasses here with Lemovitz, Kashner, and even Isaiah McDaniel, who now has 2 wins over Kashner.
Yeah.
I think it could be a good bracket. But who would your semifinalists be looking at this bracket?
So I kind of looked at it a little different, where I went um, contenders.
Hmm.
Who do I think are going to be in the mix in that? Basically, yeah, are they going to be in the semifinals? Um, you know, are they in the mix for essentially a title?
Yeah.
Um, dark horses, which are really kids that could make a run and aren't really seeded to. Some kids that aren't your state champs, or maybe in the public's eye looked at as a favorite, but that could make a really deep run and really tough. And that could mean anywhere from a finals run to placing, to it really just depends on the bracket. But that's kind of the dark horses. And then I did a landmine at every weight, which is like who's just gonna mess up the whole bracket, kind of,
It's
or
gonna
who
be
has
a
the
bunch
who
of
has the
those with how these
opportunity to.
brackets are.
Right, right. So I guess to start at 6,
Yeah.
the landmine I went with was Ashmith, from Sharon.
Mhm.
I think he's tough, man, and he's been in the hunt, and he's been in the mix. And obviously there's going to be some slight bias throughout my predictions here with rocking my club shirt and my guys, and all that, being able to work with some of these kids. But I'm going to try to be as subjective as possible. But I also think the kid is in a unique spot where he runs into who I have as a contender, which is contending for a title, which Isaiah McDaniel,
He's
is
good.
one of my 4 that I put down in the contender category. To draw Ashmith right out the gate, that's a tough draw for him.
Junior versus
So that's
freshman,
how,
you know?
yeah, right, right. And so that's why I kind of put Ashmith down as a potential landmine. The contenders were, yep, Cole, um, Kastner, McDaniel, and Fournier. I think those
Dude, and
4.
Fournier and Jackman in the first round. How about that, man?
That's wild. That's
That's
why it's
insane.
price of admissions right there. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
But that, goes into how we need to evolve. There's no reason the MA runner up and Connecticut third place finisher should be facing in the round of 32.
Yeah, yeah, I know. If you look at that, that's an interesting little bracket right there, right? Because
You're gonna
I've
get
heard some really
Kylan
good
Berry
things.
too, who's no slouch for Maine. He's who I
Right, I've
would
heard good
maybe put him
things.
in the contender series. You know,
Right, right.
he's
No, I've
very.
definitely heard really good things about him, and you have 2 top 5 guys, or arguably, and Jackman and Fournier right in the pigtail, and then they're feeding right into Cole. So that's a tough spot right there. That's a spot to circle if you're a fan and just trying to watch some really good wrestling on Friday night for sure.
And real quick, how about Lily Runas from Keene? Competing in the boys division, draws Aiden Morris first round. That's gonna be a tough one for her, but I'm expecting her to, have a great weekend, win a match or two. Hope.
No, that's awesome. It's huge to get there. It's huge to get there and get the opportunity, and you know what? I think there's going to be more girls behind her, and as the sport develops, it's amazing to see the leaps and bounds it's going. So I'm excited, and I think everyone's kind of pulling for her just to have a solid performance for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, on your end, do you have any dark horses for 106?
Dude, I think Robbie Newton, with the way the bracket is structured, I could see him and Glenn having a great quarterfinals, and then if he makes it there to the semis, whether it's Ash Smith or Isaiah McDaniel, I could see Robbie Newton potentially making a finals run, and there's in that case we potentially have a Rhode Island rematch with Lemovitz if he were to make it on his side. But
Right.
I would also say, maybe Devin Mateo from West Springfield, he's got a couple great wins on the year. I think he's sneaky good, especially, having Jude Grammatico in the first round. That's going to be a tough match for him. But then with Mason Sheltra, I think if he can get past those two, he'll be ready for, his potential match with Kastner in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that is definitely, he could really be a bracket buster. That's a good call. And it's a good pigtail as well, with Jude. It's going to be a good match. And he's impressed me with just both guys there with just their offense. So that's going to be a fun one. I think there's actually a lot of decent quarters in early round matchups in that one. Any other people in that bracket you want to kind of touch base on, whether it's contender for you or landmine or anything?
Landon Herdick from Norwich Free Academy, I got to be honest, I didn't know much about him during the season, but then the Connecticut Class Double L and State Open tournaments, he really surprised me. So he's definitely one out there to be wary of.
Right, right. And that'll be a good one to encircle with Glenn, because Glenn's had a lot of success. He's always been kind of in the hunt, and you've always seen that name out there and doing well. And Glenn, shout out to him for I believe he placed at Eastern States.
Yeah.
So that's which is always really really tough to do. But yeah, another guy not to sleep on for sure in that weight.
And moving on to 113. There's a clear top guy here, Mr. Shabazz. But then, they're the obvious contenders after, Ganji, he's just on the same side of the bracket. But then, the lower half of the bracket, you got Nick DeSisto, Zach Broska from Fairfield Ward is a contender. And I'd even put Luis Garcia in that category too, because he's honestly been on a tear this postseason.
Yeah, he was my landmine. I think he's in a decent spot to make some noise.
Him and
He's got
LaFond,
it.
or he already beat
Yeah,
LaFond on the year.
he did. But that's I also have LaFond as a dark horse. So I think that's one you circle on Friday night is a big matchup, because I just think either one of those is a potential semifinalist, winner right there. There's definitely, I agree with a lot of the people you pointed out. Morris, he's in a tough spot running right into Shabazz, but I think, he's been on the podium before last year. I think he can get it done. Hughes is really tough from Rhode Island. And Apollo from Pano too. Don't, sleep on him. He's definitely, caught some people's attention for sure.
Yeah, dude. Another interesting one here is Adler Mora from Bow, New Hampshire. He was wrestling 120, I'm pretty sure, at the beginning of the year, and he did look a little small for it, I will say. But ever since he's dropped to 113, I don't think he's lost a match, at least in New Hampshire. So he's definitely he's big for the weight. He's quick. He's strong. It's his senior year, so I know he's hungry. So I think him and Brosco will be another round of 16 match. We want to watch, and then the winner gets that either most likely Garcia or LaFond. Definitely don't want to count out Charlie Ford from North Providence, but we'll see.
Right,
That's
right.
6 right there.
That's a fun area.
Even Jaden Mendez, he shocked me at the I think it was the D2 or whichever Melrose is at.
Yeah, no, they're tough, and I think Adler's an X factor as well. I just think it comes down to, is he stronger than a lot of the guys at the weight? And if he is, he's going to be really, really hard to wrestle for some of these guys.
Mm-hmm. Dude, and if I had to pick a bracket buster, I might pick either Dante Grazino or Dylan Myers. Honestly, Dylan Myers from Ridgefield. Like both of those guys, like that's a great round of 32 match. And then Evan Kowalski from Mount Airy, Brunswick, who the winner would get, is only a freshman, so I think he might be a year away from making a real big splash at this tournament. And then the winner of that would have a brawl with DeSisto. I know that, and
Right.
it'd be incredible.
Right. Actually, that when you relook at this, that bottom half of the bracket is filtering out to see who's gonna likely face Chavez. There's definitely some talent up top with Ganji and Apollo and some other guys there, but the bottom half looks tough.
Mm-hmm. You wanna move on to 120? Is there anyone else you want to touch on?
No, that was good, man. That's great.
Another weight where there's a clear number one guy in our boy Petey here, but he could have a tough match in the second round with Mason Oborio or Jason Ballew. I think Oborio would probably be the tougher match for him. Granted, I don't think they've ever seen each other, but that's gonna be a good one to keep an eye out on.
For sure. I went into this, and I usually started with each weight like, all right, let's start with a landmine. And there's so many landmines here. Like, This is just crazy, this first round. And Friday night is going to be, the winner of that first pigtail, like you mentioned. I think O'Brien and Timberlane right there are going to be really tough to see. Maybe one of them make it out to the quarters. So that's an important pigtail. Christian Jose from Danbury is super tough.
Yeah, third place at Eastern States, dude.
Right. That's no slouch.
It'd be interesting to see if him and Duncan Harrington meet up in the quarters again, because Duncan Harrington beat him earlier in the year at the Mount Anthony Danbury duel.
Right.
Like the upset when it happened.
Right, and and you got. I actually had, believe it or not, I had 4 contenders down in the 180. I think people would say P's the favorite, and he earned the right with returning New England champ, and I think 101 or something like that. No, so he's I know he's over 100 for sure. But contenders wise, guys, I think that could be in the mix for it was with Jared Hood. Who else I put down? I actually kind of a mini sleeper for a contender category, but I think he's been on the podium twice. This would be his 3rd time as Cam Davis. He's in an interesting spot.
He's gonna have a tough match with honestly, those 3 that he could potentially face in the quarterfinals: Braden Goes, Kaiden Merlin, Dominic Barella. All 3 of those guys are gonna give him a tough match. I think.
Yeah, Barella was my 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barella was my 4th. I think the winner of that quarter is gonna, dark horses though. There's so many dark horses here. Yeah, he's been on the New England stand before. Can he get it done again? Same with Lucier. He's got some great offense, and he's up 4th last year. He was in the finals with PD a few times already. Can he get there again? Brody is super tough from Salem. I had him as a dark horse. And you definitely pay attention to a lot of these kids in the off season, and I'd say someone like Brody is definitely under the radar, where he's a kid that went out to Super 32 and won 3 matches, and that's not easy to do, and especially at those lighter weights. So definitely keep your eye out on him. I think those are some of the dark horse contender. And the last I got here to give a shout out to is the landmine is Stone Farnsworth. I think as well. So circle that McDonald Farnsworth first round. Stone's a returning New England placer as well. So if you look at all that firepower on the bottom half, it's pretty crazy.
I would love to see a Stone Farnsworth and Cam Davis rematch in the semis, because I'm pretty sure Cam beat Stone in the semis at Rhode Island States.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be to anyone's surprise to see both of those guys go really deep in the tournament. So I think it's very likely they'll see each other late in that tournament. Any other sleepers or anything on that weight that you thought of, or?
Quick shout out to Austin DeWitt from Massabesic, Maine. Tough wrestler, and Maine is deep at 120. So I think if he could win his first round of 32 match, he could definitely give Duncan Harrington a run for his money, and maybe end up seeing Pote, Augusto, or Hood in the quarterfinals. So he's one to
Right.
not sleep on.
No, that's solid. That's solid, and that's a solid spot where you can make a run. Yeah, that's the interesting thing about these brackets, right? You kind of look for where some of these spots are like, it's iron on iron, and then you look for some of these spots that maybe have some younger guys in it, first time at the tournament. So, it's interesting to see how some of this plays out.
Yeah. 126, we got Mr.
Yeah, probably. I agree with you. I heard you the other day, deepest weight in the tournament. You wanna give this one a run?
What?
Just what you think for contenders, dark horses. What's your thoughts
Oh,
on
yeah.
26?
Yeah, dude, 126, I thought throughout the whole year was always the deepest weight. And, my contenders for clearly Peyton Ellis, Yandel Morales, number 1 or number 2. Joe Mahoney from New Fairfield was my clear number. I had him above Yandel, but since Braylon Gonzalez beat him at the Opens, Braylon was incredible. I could see Braylon making a run, at Yandel. Peyton is a little different story, but I think it would be a great match with him there. Some dark horses that you can't count out. Obviously, Robbie D from Pontigansett. Young freshman, but we know how good he is. Dylan Kadish from Newton South. He's in a good spot in the bracket. Gonna have a good matchup with Spencer Buscema, most likely in the round of 16. And Kai Lai from Minichog. He's very tough. I'm pretty sure he's only a sophomore. He draws Braylon in the second round, and he has a tough one with Seth McGrew in the first. But it's gonna be good. And then a straight up dark horse, I think, is my man Isaac Quiles. He's going to have a tough brawl with Nathan Sayers in the first round. And I know he wants him. He told me at State Opens, he said, I'm ready for Sayers. But we'll see how this match goes. I know that man is hungry for the podium.
Oh, it's awesome. This is a solid weight, man. When you go down it's just from a fan's aspect, it's deep. You go right from the top with Ellis multiple time. Or should be, multiple time. How many times did he win states, right? 15. And the New England champ last year, has been on the podium, an All-American. You go to Sayers a couple times. State champ, right?
Emmett's never been in the consolation side of a tournament.
Yeah. Emmett, you got Lyons is tough. Pease is tough. Cooper, Monty Tech is tough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really tough. That's just the top half of the bracket. Spencer's tough. I agree with a lot of the picks you had. Emmett Logan definitely impressed me in this postseason for sure. I think he's he definitely showed he was tough last year, but I think he definitely looked really, really solid and tough this postseason. So definitely keep an eye out for him. Ellis for sure is I would think obviously for most people is a front runner in this bracket, but Braylon's super tough. I agree with everyone you called out. An interesting super sleeper I think in this bracket is Carter Trujillo from Keene.
Yeah.
He just because of how his I think you remember last year he had an interesting year where he's kind of off the radar. I think he came in as a New Hampshire 3. Came from behind 3 times, made the podium, and then he kind of fell off the radar again. I mean, and some of it was just some losses and stuff like that along the way, but he's managed to find himself back in the bracket, and he's in an interesting spot where,
have a good one with Evan Bullard, freshman from Maine. That's going to be a good match.
Right. So that's an interesting little 3-person spot right there as well. Who gets out to Saturday morning out of that little spot.
Yeah.
All right, you want to move on to 32?
Yeah, dude. 32, I think 32 might have one of the best potential finals matches ever if, the clear-cut 1 and 2 make it.
It's going to be an entertaining one for sure. I think this bracket is going to be a lot of fun to watch kind of play out. I think the layers as it gets deeper into the tournament, it gets more and more entertaining. And so, yeah, there's some heavy hitters in this bracket. I think the two, top seeds for most people would be Perez and Paulino, and they've earned that right. And it's going to be, a battle, not just, if they get to the finals, but I think along the way too. They've got some really deep talent. I'm looking through this bracket right now. There's just, Soto's super tough.
Yeah, I can see him making it to the semis, honestly.
Yeah. Von Magnus,
Yeah.
no,
Gavin
he'll scrap.
is very good too. Promotion side main.
Yep. Yep. There's a lot of guys. George from Severian is super tough, but I know Brady Zadora too. So that's going to be a fun pigtail. But Perez, has got to come out ready to wrestle in that first round for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see who else I'm looking through.
Lucas Judd, he's only a freshman from Lyman Memorial, Wyndham Tech. So and he might have what it takes to compete with Caden Brousseau. So
yeah, and that's an important probably match in that little 3-person spot. Can you get to Saturday and in that kind of 8 seed spot in the bracket to face off with Perez.
Another person you can't count out that I could see busting some brackets. My boy Phoenix from Norwalk. Lost this match last year, but then won 6 straight to place 3rd. I could see him making the quarters against Jonah, and I could see that being an absolute brawl.
Oh yeah, that actually is going to be a fun one if that turns out, because they're both gamers. They both scrap really hard. And yeah, that's going to be an entertaining one. Definitely highlight that one for Saturday morning.
And Vermont's got a guy here, Trey Lee. I believe he's like 49-2 or something. So he's going to be one to watch out for.
I've seen the name around. That's one of the names I have seen kind of circulating and with some wins. So it's actually one that I'm curious on how he fares. And I know Ben White's pretty tough, and Shawshin, he's tough as well. So it's going to be a good test to see where he's at for sure.
Mm-hmm. And even Elijah Farias from Gardner, Maine. I know I said I have Phoenix in the quarters, but that's going to be a great match. I could, maybe see Elijah getting the best of Phoenix. We'll see, but
Yeah. You want to go to 144?
Dude, 38, man.
Oh, 38. Sorry, skipped. Yeah.
I mean, 38. You got Sid Tilsley up top, clear favorite. But I would say it's, he's got some competition this year.
Yeah, no, I think I put a bunch of people down as contenders, and I think he's definitely, for most people, the one, and again, a guy that's earned the right to be called the favorite for sure. And he's tough. He's won on a national level multiple times. I think some other people that have won on the national level in that bracket that I put down as contenders. Joyce, super tough. He's getting tougher by the year too. I think he continues to improve, and is placed in a lot of really important, really high level tournaments. But he's got an interesting one coming right out of the gate with Anthony Bazil.
Yeah, dude, there's been you don't have the updated brackets?
Oh no, they moved it up. They changed it.
Steele sadly suffered I believe it was a shoulder injury in the open finals of tournament. So now it's Lally versus Spadaro, which is still, very, very interesting.
Yeah. Because Spadaro is another person I had out as a dark horse here. I had the dark horses in this weight, Kyvan Kennedy, I think New Hampshire 3, I think, could make some noise.
Dude,
has before. I've seen him. Yeah, and he's won on a serious level too, so I think he's in a good spot to make some noise. Spadaro, Shea Morris, and then Caden Dustin from Noble, all kind of solid dark horses. And then I put down actually 4 contenders. I think, obviously sit at the top there, but I think with these 3 others, they're if they show up, they could, make a run at the title, which is Mendez, Joyce, and Mikey Bolanger. I think he,
Dude, he was the one
proved
that,
that last week.
yeah, definitely, dude. Scoring on Sid, going to OT with him. I think that opened a lot of people's eyes.
For sure, and he's I know he's locked in, ready to go, and I think all these guys are. I think this is going to be a fun weight and just fireworks. Even like you said, some of the people earlier with Lally and some of these others that we didn't even name just yet. Danny Carosa, I've heard
Rose is
that, and
good. He has a win on
Armstrong. So there's some
the
other really tough guys for sure.
I think that, dude, all these weights are gonna be so good.
Yep.
Now we could go to 144. And another Tilsley at the top there. We got Mr. James. Put him as a clear contender, and then I think some other three contenders definitely. Victor Petkov from Ridgefield. Winning Connecticut Opens. Vital from Pondagansett, and McCarthy. Who just won in Rhode Island. Him and Vital, I think, are 1-1 on the year. And then, dude, for my dark horses, man, and landmines, and I said it on the Ben Zen podcast, anyone from Connecticut. Connecticut was just so deep at this weight by far. Argilo, Linder, Dylan Sherman, Kyle Levesque, and then, Petkov ended up winning it all. I could see, 3 of those 5 making it onto the podium. And who knows how the bracket will work. Probably not, so 5 of the 5 make it, but I know all those 5 have the ability to make it there.
For sure, that was a deep weight. That was a deep weight in Connecticut. All those wrestlers are tough, and no, I liked all the people he called out. I think Aiden Baum's super tough as well, and you got a couple of the Massachusetts guys as well. Gray and Betancourt, and some of those guys could make some noise. Won before in this tournament, but you're right. I think Connecticut brings in a lot of the heavy artillery in this weight, with James kind of sitting as the favorite at the top. I have seen Kalat's name around, but just a little bit.
He's legit.
Yeah.
I think he lost to James the first tournament of the year, the Salem Blue Devil Classic. But, it was he won like 5 minutes with James, so, he lasted.
Solid.
And Michael Harrington from Pelham, New Hampshire, you know about him? He's good. He's legit. He'll definitely make some noise. He's got a tough draw, if he gets James Linder Jr. in the second round.
Yeah.
Strong kid,
Yep. Yeah, I know Linder's very solid. Linder looks to make a deep run, and that'll be an interesting first round match. I've definitely seen Harrington's name around quite a bit, but I haven't seen him face to face yet, so it'll be fun to see that one.
Yeah. Dude, and I feel like this is a weight where, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine kind of are more even. Because, even Avery Carl from Middlebury, Vermont, Spencer Gasway from Mount Anthony, Jacob Andrade from Timberlane, New Hampshire. Like, those guys are good. They have a chance to, bust a couple brackets, go far.
For sure. I've seen these names make the tournament before. It's not their first time at the dance. I think that's really important. They're not going to roll over easy on either the top or half side of that bracket. So, that's a weight I could see, and honestly a couple more as we get deeper into the weights.
Yeah, dude, like maturity, I think really plays a factor. I'm using Antonio Argilo as an example. I don't think he's the type of freshman to choke, I guess you could say. He's wrestled at Pan Ams, he's wrestled on big stages. But if you're a freshman coming in here, like that, and, you might not be ready for the big stage, I hope you are. It's a great tournament. But I think maturity and age definitely plays a factor. So the fact that, these kids have been here before, is in their favor.
For sure.
Okay, so looking at 150, another one of the weights. There's that top guy, we all know and love, Mr. Gabe Boysu. And then, this is also one of those examples where I think the number 2 guy is on the same side, so it's unfortunate. But I think Maddox, would be another contender, even though Gabe's already teched him during the year. I know Jake has that fire underneath him to go out and compete with Gabe. And then, dude, some other contenders definitely. Evan Sheeby from Gilbert, he is a win over Maddox. And you definitely can't count out Gabe Stickney. He won the Lowell tournament. He's taken a couple losses on the year, but Massachusetts is tough as hell. We all know that. And then a landmine I think might make some noise. Just looking at this is John Lagana from Xavier. I think he's in a good spot in the bracket. Him and Stickney might potentially match up in the quarterfinals, and I could see Lagana making it to the semis. And then another one that I think just everyone has to look out for is Mr. Carnell Davis. We talked about his brother Cam a little bit earlier, but Carnell's a dog. He's got it in him. I could see him making the podium as a freshman this year.
For sure. Yeah, no, those are all solid wrestlers right there. I mean, I think Gabe, another guy that's, has the right to call himself the favorite in that weight. And then you've got a lot of solid contenders behind him. And Ayotte, Massachusetts All-State champ, and Cyrus, both guys I trained. So obviously I'll give them a shout out. They're both tough at 1 and 2 coming in mass. But they're definitely ready to make some noise, and I know Libby's super tough from Maine. He's definitely made some noise, not just New England, but I know he's won outside of New England as well. I'm trying to think of a few others.
Michael Rollins, another Maine guy who's good. Maine's pretty good at this weight.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
No, solid weight though. It's going to be interesting. I think this is one of those weights that, placing wise, almost anything can happen, right?
I agree. I feel like just 2 through 6 is could be anyone. Seth Hasty from Bedford, he's been hot recently, winning the New Hampshire Meet of Champions. That was a tough bracket, in New Hampshire.
Right.
Props to him.
No, yeah, and I think he made the Lowell finals, right?
He lost to 16 in the Lowell finals.
So he's won matches on the big stage, and he's definitely another name to circle. Now I'm pulling up the brackets on Flow Arena since I was looking at the old school brackets.
Oh, yeah, dude, there might be some change. There was at least 1-2 at 150. I'll shout out my boy, Damian Rosu real quick from Staples, Connecticut, placed 6, but was able to sneak in due to sadly Will Smith doesn't look like he's going to be competing, which is a shame. Placed last year at a New England tournament, but I know he's been dealing with a bunch of injuries, so really hope you get well soon, Will.
For sure, he was a name I had circles for sure, and you were the one that updated me on that. So I, hope he gets better soon and gets back out there for sure.
Yeah. Moving on to 57, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, I think this is a fun weight, man. I think this is a fun one. I think there's a ton of contenders, guys that could walk away with a title. I think, you give the slight edge to Teagan is kind of the front runner, being a New England finalist last year, McConnell. But, D'Ambrosio right behind, Division I recruit there to Edinburgh University. Really solid kid. Was won on, really tough matches outside of New England as well. So keep an eye out for him. Talento and Courier battling in the quarters.
That's going to be
Bulls. Yeah, that's going to be epic. And they are super tough. I have those two as kind of the final. Those are the 4 contenders I had listed. I think those 4 really shows up who shows up that day. Both days, right? Friday and Saturday, they got to get the job done. And there's some tough wrestlers that they're going to have to deal with on Friday night. Rivera being one of them from Connecticut. That's going to be tough.
East Hartford or Xavier?
Is it East Hartford?
There's 2, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to go. Yeah, let's see. I had the one that I had circled though was D'Ambrosio's, just because I've watched.
Oh yeah, Vincent. He's only a freshman.
Yeah, I've watched a little bit of him, and as I've seen kind of who he's beat, in comparables and stuff, and he's beaten some tough kids along the way. So just to have that out of the gate um, for D'Ambrosio, I thought was a tough first round match to kind of circle. I also actually, you know what, I'm looking up the bracket. The other Rivera circled as well. I think
Yeah.
he'll bracket bust. He's in a good spot to bracket bust. I also think Methuen right there, Vincent DeMaio can also bracket bust as well. So fun wait, fun wait.
Yeah. I think, I'd have to agree with every single one of your contenders. A few dark horses. A couple from Connecticut off the bat. Tyler Nevia from Trumbull. He beat Donnell Young from Fairfield Ludlow, who went 2-2 at New England's last year for fifth place in Connecticut to qualify for this event. So he's hungry to place on the podium. He's beaten great guys. He's going to be a tough challenge for McConnell in the second round. Another Connecticut guy, Mark Morath. I believe he also went 2-2 last year at this tournament, so he's been here before. He knows how to win. And then, Yaxia Rivera is going to have a tough match in the round of 16 against Hudson Lufkin from Dorigo, Maine. Hudson's only a freshman, and I know he was wrestling 157 a majority of the year. Had some very tough matches against Lucas Libby and Michael Rollins. He was wrestling 150. Tough matches against Libby and Rollins. Couldn't quite get past them, so he bumped up to 57. And I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really expecting him to be able to beat Harriman and Beatty, considering, they're upperclassmen, they're established. But he was able to get it done at the main New England qualifier, so I think he's definitely someone you got to keep in mind. Not just this year, but for the next 3 years, he's going to be someone making a lot of noise in Maine. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's real cool to see a stud freshman like him up there in the north. And then I feel like another person you gotta be on the lookout for is Kobe Cloutier from King Philip. I feel like he's got a good draw right there. He's gonna have a battle with Beatty in the first match, but then I could see them getting past Coppins and potentially facing either Rivera or D'Ambrosio in the quarters there.
No, that's all solid picks too. Couldn't agree more, man. It's a fun weight. I think that little bracket that you pointed out, not just the Courier Talento, but with Lufkin and Vince Mayo and all those guys right there, Rivera, even the Beverly kid's tough.
Yeah, Casey Mako, he's good.
Yeah, and he's been turning some people's heads. So it'll be a fun weight. I think there's going to be a lot of who wrestles the best on that day. For that weight.
Yeah. Moving to 65, this is another one that could be a real fun one, with top dogs, top clear contenders such as Nicolosi and Real, and then, Fisher Stites is in the mix as well. And then you can't count out, a couple runner-ups, Joey Bolduc, from Methuen, he's right there with everyone. And even Dominic Bubar from Massabesic, he placed 6th at last year's New England's. He's a real tall kid. I know he wrestled a couple close matches with Nicolosi, took Nicolosi down. But he actually lost the main New England qualifier to Jaden Lafreniere, who he beat earlier in the year. So it's going to be real interesting to see how Lafreniere is able to do against, the competition out of Maine, considering he beat Bubar. But I think I would put Lafreniere and Bubar both as kind of dark horses.
I definitely had.
From Danbury. That kid's always fun to watch.
Yeah, I had actually both of those main guys circled as dark horses. Think that they could shake up the bracket as well as Bolduc. I think he has some high level wins. Lucas Alban was a match away last year. I also think
Pan Am member.
Yeah, and I think he's also in a nice spot in the bracket. So making the most of that. The top 2 or 3 with Nicolosi, Real, and Stites. Those are high quality wrestlers coming out of New England that are going to be doing really big things on the next level. So that's just fun to see. And not just those 3, the others I mentioned too, in that kind of bunch of contenders as well. I think there's just some really high level wrestling out of this group. Once you especially get into the top 16, top 12, there's some really tough kids here.
Even in New Hampshire, Logan Allaire was dominant all season, then goes out and loses to Connor Isaac of Wyndham, who, Ben was telling me those two guys are definitely going to bring the heat to New England, especially Allaire coming off a loss. He's gonna be hungry.
For sure.
All right, moving on to 175. You could take this one, but there's another guy that's clear cut, but some challengers.
Yeah, for sure. I see it as, four challengers, the four guys at the top, honestly. I know Blanchett is the favorite. And again, another guy that has the right to call himself the favorite at the weight. But this is a really high quality weight just overall with wrestlers that I think could win at a national level. There's a good amount of guys in this weight that could do it. Carlson, from Connecticut, Pinto, Marchessault from Pontiac. I think those four make it a really, really deep 75 New England weight.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of contenders as well. Shout out to a couple Metro guys I think that can make some noise early on. With Jonah Ginsberg and Amon from Brockton, Anton from Ashland as well. Just some guys that won some big matches along the way are really tough. I also know, though, that Matas and Tanner are two tough Northern guys as well. So North is actually bringing some tough guys in this weight with Pinto, Matas, Tanner. Yeah, so this is a good one. This is another good weight where I think when you wrestle this weight 10 times, you're going to see a lot of different placements and results out of that 1 through 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, I think you hit the nail on the head there with the four main guys: Blanchett, Carlson, Marchessault, and Pinto Jr. And then, yeah, dude, I could see Matas and Tanner, making some noise here, and even Sawyer Goodwin from I believe Spalding, New Hampshire. Yes, not Vermont. He has a win over Gavin Tanner this year, so it's gonna be interesting to see, how good he is. He's a tough match right off the bat with Kiana Musgar from Concord Carlisle, so that's gonna be good. And then even Draven Roberts from East Hartford and Max Morris from Xavier. Those guys are definitely ready to crack some skulls. Morris beat Roberts, I think 6-2 in the Connecticut Open semis. And I think Roberts lost to Alvin right before the blood round last year. And Morris has been injured for, I believe, like the last year and a half. So it's fine. It's great to really see him on this stage. Last time I saw him wrestle competitively, I swear he was like 130 or something.
No, yeah, that's actually a really good call with all those wrestlers. But yeah, specifically those Connecticut guys you mentioned at the end there. That definitely two names I overlooked when I was shouting out some of those names because they're tough. They're both very tough and could absolutely make some noise.
Yeah. And even shout out, Dante Pino from South Kingston. I know he's a tough wrestler. He's ready to come prepared for the weekend. I think he was the Rhode Island 3. All right. Now, moving on to 190, a fun one. A real fun one looking at the bracket.
Yeah.
There's a clear number one here, clear number two that could definitely make a threat. Problem is they're projected to meet in the quarterfinals, and that's Spencer Fine and Max Kanopka. So, it goes to show we were talking about earlier, how you really have to actually seed these things so matches like this don't happen.
Yeah, I know. And I how I feel about it. I think there's just, this is where seeding charts are a good idea in theory, and I think they brought the sport a long way. But as it's evolved and stuff like that, we want to avoid a 1 and 2 wrestling in the quarters if we can for just fans in general, right? And also it has team race implications. It really messes up that backside. Whoever drops down in any of those scenarios where guys are meeting too early, so. It'll be a real big test for the freshmen to see Fine coming in. A lot of firepower and and I know he's going to be coming in hungry and with a chip on his shoulder. So definitely have that circled early on. We'll be Matt's side for that. That'll be a fun one to watch along the way, and I think that's probably your 1 and 2. But there's definitely some other guys ready to make some noise. And
Toppin, Josie,
mm,
name a couple. Jack
mm,
Giannetto, the guy that beat Fine,
mm, yep, yep, and a couple of those Connecticut guys too, Snyder and Braden.
Braden Solu. He's
yeah,
oh my god, he's a huge kid, dude. I swear he's like 6'4", So if you don't
yeah,
know how to wrestle against a tall guy, you're not gonna have fun with him.
yeah, and I think that Harris Fallon matchup early is going to be
Yeah.
interesting because I think that's going to be really important that you could be looking at your semifinalist right there,
Mm-hmm.
whoever wins that. I know some of the, Ronca and some of the other guys are pretty tough as well, but
Yeah, dude, Isaac Preston and Thomas Murphy, Vermont bringing some more firepower here. Murphy, I think he placed fourth at Lowell, only losing to Josie. And then Isaac Preston has beaten Murphy like twice this year, including the Vermont State Finals. So, those two guys are definitely legit.
yeah, yeah, but I think this is a weight just as a college, colleges as well that want to see. All right, let's see how these guys shake out a little bit. Where sometimes the upper weights don't always get the meat as much as some of these lighter weights. I don't know why it plays out that way. I think sometimes the upper weights are a little bit more spread out geographically or something. Where you're seeing Fine versus Nossaman. And I know Nossaman's tough in the first round.
Yeah.
And you got, Harris and Preston. That's two ends of the spectrum from Massachusetts to Vermont and Ronca and Maine. So I think there's a good spread out amount of talent in this weight.
Yeah. All right, you wanna take the reins on 215?
Yeah, this is a fun one. I think 215 gets and formerly. Did I break up there?
Yeah, broke up for a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, so I think 215 is super tough. Really good weight for New England this year. You got a lot of firepower coming in. There's a ton of firepower on the bottom half of this bracket. It's insanity. You got Weidman, who's Beast the East Placer. He's had some really big wins over his career. Doing well at Journeyman as well. We got my guy Diorio, who just came off Rhode Island's. Really tough. He's placed at big tournaments as well along the way. He's placed at NHSCA. He's placed at Eastern States, and so he's got experience in these big tournaments. But he's going to have a landmine coming out of the gate with Vasquez. That's brutal matchup just early on where you see. What was Vasquez last year? I know he placed at New England's, but
yeah, I think it's funny, dude. I think he was like the Massachusetts 7th place finisher and ended up placing at New England. So
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, and you'll see that in some of these upper weights,
familiar
right?
to busting brackets,
Right. So he's sitting there, and it's a solid little bracket out to who's going to make that semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
Harold on the bottom is definitely a name to circle on the bottom of that bracket.
Yeah, Soren Reed Killingly. I think him and Matt will match up well in the quarterfinals. I think that'll be a good one.
Mm-hmm. Fowler from Wyndham is tough up top.
Jameson Couture from Virgins Union in Vermont, another Vermont name, getting mentioned, thrown around a little bit. He's solid.
Yep. And then you got
potentially Manuel Mengenta from Tewksbury, it's gonna be good.
Right. And then at the top you got Pellegrini, who will be looking for a push for the finals for sure. Harvard commit, but he's got a returning New England finalist, possibly. I mean, he's got that. Sammy's got to get by, Gillis and a tough Cranston wrestler from Rhode Island here. But that could be a New England finalist versus number one in New England in the quarters as well.
Mm-hmm. That would be probably the best quarterfinals of the bracket, in my opinion. Or unless Weidman and Diorio, that's also just as good.
Right, and well, he's another sleeper or landmine in profit. He was on the New England stand last
Yeah,
year,
he's got the win over Matt.
so there's some tough wrestling. I think this is another way you shake it up and see kind of who comes out first through sixth. You wrestle it again the next day. It's a different six, so it'll be fun to uh, just watch how that bracket plays out.
Yeah. Moving on, lastly to the big boys, the biggest boys, the heavyweights.
Yeah.
Thomas Brown, like you've been saying, deserves it. It has the right to call himself the favorite.
Hmm.
And then, I'd say maybe his biggest challenge might be probably well, my number two all year long, Johnny Latree from Coney, Maine. Made the blood round last year in New England, was undefeated all year. He's legit. And then he is gonna have a tough round of 16 matchup against my number three, Alex Bahoris from St. John's Prep. He's gone toe to toe with Brown each of these past few weeks. So I think the winner of that match ends up coming out, into the finals from the bottom half of the bracket. But you definitely can't count out Keonta Crawford from Enfield, the Connecticut Opens champ. He's amazing, honestly. He's very good. And even John Da Silva, who came in third at Connecticut Opens, he's just got a tough match with Gabriel Thomas of Brookline. So, and then the winner of that faces Brown. So that's kind of just a bad positioning. But you cannot count out Kaz Morissetti from North Kingstown, Rhode Island. He's a sophomore. I believe he was an NHSCA All-American last year. Has a bunch of great wins on the year, including one over Keonta Crawford. So I think he could give Brown a run for his money in the semifinals potentially.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch him wrestle. He's young up and coming wrestler and in a tough weight to be an underclassman. So excited to watch him wrestle. I think Brown, yeah, coming out as a favorite. I think it's interesting to see Gabe Thomas and Da Silva in that pigtail rolling right into Brown because I think on face value, if you maybe didn't look at the postseason rolling into uh, the postseason, I think you could almost argue Gabe Thomas and De Silva being a 4-5 seed, maybe
Yeah.
6-7, and they're wrestling each other to wrestle Brown early on. And I know Gabe Thomas pushed Brown in one of those matches, and then Brown got the better of him in the rematch. Um, and yeah, De Silva's won matches, big matches. Ray, I've seen some tough things out of New Hampshire.
Yeah, Evan Ray. He's no
I
soft.
believe Herrera's been to the dance now twice. Absolutely, with Johnny Latree at a Maine, had that name circled for a while now. I think he's an absolute horse up at that weight. But he's got a super tough round of 16. I think most people would see that as the 2-3 seed,
Yeah.
and they'll wrestle in the round of 16. So that's one you definitely circle Friday night as well. And look, the thing about heavyweight, you see it every year, which is so cool. Just as a fan, is there's always a Connecticut 5 or Vermont 2 or just kind of a Cinderella story that catches fire, wrestles well that day, and goes on the run to the semis and stuff. So I think there's almost no one in this weight you can count out if they made it this far. Jones from Coventry and some other guys. The Springfield Central heavy is really tough.
Yeah.
Leominster heavy is tough. Berlin, yeah. So there's just almost no one in this weight would surprise me if they landed on the podium.
Yeah, I agree. Dude,
Well, man, that was fun.
Dude, do we touch on team race at all real quick?
Yeah, for sure. What's your take?
Dude, if I had to think, I think it would go Pontigansett, Xavier, maybe Newtown, and then probably St. John's Prep. Or no, probably Haverhill, then St. John's Prep. And then after that, it's whatever. But I think Pontigansett, I think it's going to be close this year, but I just think they bring so much firepower. that Xavier is really the only team that could compete with them. Pontigan's is bringing 9 guys. Pontigan's is bringing 11. Xavier bringing 9. So it's gonna be close, but those 2 extra guys winning, 2, 4 extra matches might be the difference.
Oh, I think you nailed it on that. Nailed it on the spot there with number 1 and 2. I think most people would agree with you there. Favorite Pano, with getting pushed by Xavier, Connecticut, which hats off to both of those programs for getting that many guys to the tournament in really tough states to do it. So that's really said a lot about those programs. Really interesting kind of group of teams that can really just depends on who catches fire for that team. Coventry, Rhode Island, I think could be another one because they have some heavy hitters. And if someone like Jones and Stone Farnsworth for them go off, they could be in the title hunt or pushing for second place. So don't count them out as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. They're very underrated. They're one of those teams bringing like just 3, 4 guys, but all those guys potentially could make the podium.
Right.
Nick, is there anything else you want to touch on?
Nah, man, it was good. It was fun to take the time and go through the bracket like madmen and do what we do. And we have these conversations offline too, just about New England wrestling and just what can we do to improve it for the area. So I appreciate everything you do, man. It's helpful for the kids. They deserve the exposure. They put in the hard work. It's their time to shine. Time to be a fan now and get to sit back and watch all the hard work that these kids put in and see who lands at the top, right? So we'll see.
Dude, it's all for them, and they do it all for this weekend. So
yep,
crowns will be placed on heads, and sadly some hearts will be broken. But sports,
That's right. Well, good luck to all the athletes, and thank you for the time. Thank you for everything you do. Again, so appreciate it.
Of course.